Well, anger over the Israeli offensive in Gaza has led to a spike in anti-Semitic attacks around the world. In the wake of the Hamas terror attack, already traumatized Jewish communities have had to grapple with hate speech and verbal and physical abuse. Jews in many countries say they feel unsafe and like they're being held responsible for decisions and actions of the Israeli government. That's the case, too, in Argentina, which has the largest Jewish community in South America.
Agustina Said takes her son to a Jewish school in the Palermo neighbourhood of Buenos Aires. Under his coat, the boy is wearing school uniform. But at other schools serving Argentina's Jewish community, children are no longer required to wear uniform. The reason given, security concerns after the Hamas attacks in Israel. Agustina works for the newspaper Diario Ar. She's reported on how the climate for Jews in Argentina is becoming more and more threatening.
Someone threw a stone at another Jewish school. My mother-in-law was shopping. The man standing in line behind her said, "Everybody hates you Jews." In the street, someone was told, "Go back to the ghetto." It scares me a little, but mostly it makes me angry.
Videos like this of an elderly woman verbally abusing a Jewish man are adding to the anger felt by many. Political journalist Romina Manguel hosts a programme on the radio station Radio Con Vos. The Jewish school her daughters attend is one of those no longer requiring students to wear uniform, so they cannot be identified. She understands, but warns of the contradiction of going from pride in the faith to hiding it.
They stop wearing the kippah, and to put that respectful distance between God and man, they wear a baseball cap or a soccer cap. The parents of many of my daughter's friends took away their Star of David necklaces. Many dads and mums are considering not sending their children on school trips.
In Argentina, synagogues, schools and Jewish clubs maintain strong security measures. They were introduced after more than 100 people were killed in the 1992 bombing of the Israeli embassy and the 1994 bombing of a Jewish community centre. One of the survivors of that attack is Daniel Pomerantz. He's now the centre's executive director, and he's not afraid of the current climate.
In Argentina, fortunately, in the last few years, and particularly in the city of Buenos Aires, there has been a trend towards coexistence. Our society is rich and diverse, but we need to be vigilant.
Lautaro Brodsky wrote the book Dictatorship and Antisemitism about Argentina's military dictatorship from 1976 to 1983. Despite the current tension, he remains active in the Jewish community, visiting liberal Jewish centres where he helps teach Yiddish, for example.
I don't want to live in fear. The community is very divided. Those of us who do not support what Israel is doing in the Palestinian territories suffer certain political discrimination. I recently read a tweet from a rabbi who said we should be expelled.
Although some Jews say they are not afraid, authorities are concerned and have tightened security at Jewish institutions.
Let's bring in DW correspondent Martin Gak. He's an ethics and religious affairs expert and also just so happens to be from Argentina. Martin, how are you? How often do rising tensions in the Middle East trigger this kind of anti-Semitic fallout in Argentina?
Well, very often. Not only I happen to be Argentina, I also happen to be Jewish, and I grew up in that community. I think that very often, whatever happens in the Middle East spreads over and spills over, and this is no exception. Of course, I think that the 7th of October attack represents a sea change in terms of the dynamic and the understanding of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I think that obviously we are going to see repercussions of this.
Mm-hmm. So what's behind that? Why are people that are Jewish being taken as an extension of actions that are decided on by the Israeli government?
Well, I think that there are two or three matters, but sort of the most direct one is that Israel itself has been very effective in passing along the message that Israel and Jews or Israel and Judaism can be conflated. So, in some sense, it comes at no surprise that Israel sort of presenting itself as a guarantor of Jewish life across the world means that Jews essentially become targets. I mean, I've seen this probably from the first line, as I said before. I think that the other part of it is that Latin America, and Argentina is one of the cases, has a very strong sense of victimization in the face of colonial powers, and it is through these categories that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is read, essentially an occupying power with colonial designs on a population that has no way to defend itself. So particularly among the left, I think that the commitments are very clear with the Palestinian cause. And then there is sort of a long-standing anti-Semitic far right, much like we have in Europe, that has taken advantage of the current situation to actually also push in that direction. I mean, I have to say, anti-Semitism is not a new phenomenon to the region, but also it's a region that has seen very strong and very tight communities across religious boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Let's pick this apart, because we've seen some pretty striking reactions in South America to Israel's war against Hamas, political reactions. Bolivia has broken off diplomatic ties with Israel. Colombia's president has compared Israel to Nazi Germany, and a string of countries have recalled their ambassadors. So what is motivating these policies and this Israel critical course here?
Well, I think that some of these people, including Colombia, Bolivia, Chile, so on and so forth, have strong political and ideological commitments. I think that to a large degree, many of these groups and many of these political cadres are talking to their own bases, which are actually very much committed to ideological positions. So in a sense, I think that what we're seeing is people that are taking sort of the opportunity and the sort of the conflict, the geostrategic and geopolitical conflict, to pander to their own audiences. I think that this is really, to a large degree, the case. I think at the same time, it is true that, as I was saying a moment ago, the political history of Latin America means that there is sort of an almost automatic positioning against anything that the U.S. in particular, in countries that sort of generally align with the global left, anything that is seen as aligning with the U.S. will be immediately, taken to be opposition. And this is clearly the case with Israel, which is very, very close geopolitically to Washington.
Yeah. How big a factor is the rhetoric then we're seeing from leaders in the increasing attacks on members of the Jewish community, you think?
I generally tend to think that it's actually a very big deal. I tend to think that responsible for sort of a state of the polity is really the political discourse. And it's not just politicians, but it's also journalists and sort of public opinion makers and so on, who take a position that repeats some of the worst tropes. But I think that it's important to say that this goes in both directions, as our report showed. Jews that take the position that the state of Israel is committing war crimes, and there are many of them across Latin America, because there are many of them involved essentially in anti-colonial and left-wing projects. They are also at the receiving end of a lot of the public discourse that is pro-Israeli, particularly among the Latin American right. In Argentina, the far right is now really in play for the coming election, second round.
We'll have to leave it there. Martin Gach, thank you so much.
A pleasure.